OCZ acquired IndieLinks, and we're putting a lot of effort into actually getting the new controller out there. So you'll actually find that in our new lineup that has just been introduced before the Cebit. You've got the Octane SATA 2.0, so in that case it's still with the old standard. And also our new value model, the Petrol. This is basically where with the Sandforce lineup you have the Agility 3. With the IndieLinks lineup you have the Petrol. And then the difference between the two is that they handle data differently. So it doesn't really matter whether it's compressible or incompressible, it will still give you a sustained performance no matter what. A little special thing though is the Synapse cache. We saw that a lot of people are still having trouble making the transition from a hard drive to an SSD. So this is the step in between. You basically plug this in and then you download the special Dataplex software, and it will actually, after about 2 to 3 times that you actually boot up your computer, it will start to recognize that and start to cache it. So it has a dynamic algorithm that will pick up on what you are actually doing. So you'll still have all the stuff from your old system, so you don't need to reinstall Windows or clone your drive. You still have the capacity, but you'll actually just be upgrading your computer. Next to that, we also have the Nocti. This is really where we're already starting to see like a change with the netbooks and the MacBook Air. So we're going to like the smaller form factors. This is actually our M-SATA SSD, and I wouldn't be too surprised to actually see that in the coming years this will also be broadened with new models.
Actually, we saw some producers made some other boards with already an M-SATA interface on board.
Yeah. We're actually, well, I was actually just already testing it at the OCZ office the other week, because we actually also already got one of those motherboards. Yeah, it is really also the solution for netbooks or notebooks, where you could still have, in that case, the same advantage that a desktop has already. Because currently you can basically put an SSD and an HDD in a desktop, but when you have a notebook, you don't really have the space. Now, these models go up to already like 120 gigabytes, so it's more than enough for basically your operating system and your normal applications. So you basically put like all those programs on there, and then you can use the normal hard drive of a notebook to basically store your extra data. So you have best of both worlds once more.
Right, and Ultrabooks, I guess it will...
Yep, that's...
I'm happy to use this.
Yeah, we're expecting a lot out of it. Well, that was mainstream. Now we actually go to performance. This is where you already start to see the technology from the enterprise market go over into the channel. We have, well, once again, we have a caching solution. This is the RevoDrive Hybrid. It's basically an all-in-one solution where you already have the hard drive and you have the cache already in one board. Also, to get rid of like the SATA bottleneck, we are using a PCIe bridge. So in that case, we also have the possibility to get like a higher speed. Now, what is also important is that once you have the Dataplex software installed, you will actually not see the cache. This is the same with Synapse, and it's because it works in the background. And again, also, it's not your average SSD. It also has about 50% over-provisioning. Now, that might seem a lot, but then again, you're using it in a different way than a normal SSD, because with a normal SSD, you'll put data on there, and it's not going to move around a lot. But because you're basically getting all the data from a hard drive, and you're pushing it through the SSD, the wear on it is going to be a lot higher. So that's why we basically increased the over-provisioning, so you'll get the sustained performance. The Vertex 3 and Vertex 3 Max IOPS lineup, that's already, well, we've had that for a year now. They were actually still Sandforce driven, the SATA 6 gigabit interface. And now we also have the Vertex 4, where the Octane and the Petrol have the Everest 1 controller. This really has like the latest technology in it. So you'll find that it has the Everest 2, which will give you the performance that is similar to already like the current Sandforce models, but also good when it comes to incompressible data. So even if you're like moving big files, like movie files, which would normally maybe hold back a Sandforce drive, it will not actually hold back the Vertex 4. So that's really where we're seeing that change. We really want to get the maximum out of like the SATA connection. Then we also have the Lightfoot. This is our new external SSD. It's the only one. And it actually works on a Thunderbolt interface. Inside is a PCIe SSD with 2 new controllers. We'll get to that in a minute. And they basically have a bridge up to Thunderbolt, because we also see that this interface is up and coming, and also already a lot of Mac users already have this interface. So it's really also for them right now, but hopefully in the future more users will be able to use it. Lastly, on this part, we also have the RevoDrive 3X2. Now this is really where we're already making like the bridge between performance and the enterprise market, because this is really, well, we're not even calling it for the enthusiast or consumer anymore, or consumer. This is really for what we call the prosumer. So this is really where you have the photo editing people, the people that are really pushing the drives to the limit, to the absolute minimum. Because if you use this in daily life and you just, well, using Word for it or something like that, or Excel, you're doing like your standard stuff, you're not going to benefit from the real performance. The real performance over here comes from a higher QDAT. So you really got to stress the drive. You got to be busy with the drive. You got to do a lot of things at the same time, which is something you will also see in the server environment. This basically brings us to the enterprise part. Well, this is really where we already showed that we have about every interface that is actually available out on the market. We've got the Geneva Slim SATA, even now with the optional power fill protection. That's a feature that we didn't have before. The Geneva 2 M-SATA, so this is already like the new lineup on the M-SATA range. Then we have the SAS drives and the SATA drives. Even with the Talos 2, there's actually, well, it's a you might notice it's a little bit thicker than the normal SSD, but that's because there's 2 PCBs in there, so there's actually 2 controllers in there. So it's just like a double drive. And, well, as you get with the larger systems, you also get like the bigger SSDs. These all come with capacitors, so in that case you get power loss, fail protection, and even if you have like a limited options in terms of PCIe ports on the motherboards, you can actually get this one. Now this one is basically the double size of the Z-Drive R4 full height, but it only uses 1 PCIe slot, and this goes up to already like 16 terabytes. So this is great for like getting like all your virtual machines up and running. Because for instance, if you have in the morning about 30 people coming into the office and they're all trying to access their data by booting up their computer, and you have a centralized system, you're going to cause a bit of a traffic jam. Now, what this does, when you have this as a cache, in that case, you'll see that there's never going to be a traffic jam, because you don't really have like a reader head that has to search for the data. Also, well, this is enterprise, so whereas you basically can't choose the parts that are being used in the performance and mainstream models, these can be customized up to like the exact specifications of the customer, even up to the point where we can reserve the parts. So if you do need an extra drive, we can actually build it from the same material as the original one. So you're never going to have a compatibility problem.